Register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. Today is Friday. It is June 12th, 2020. Thanks so much for joining me. Let's start with this report about Donald Trump supporters having to sign waivers to get tickets to his upcoming rally and all future rallies. The waiver is a COVID-19 waiver. That's right. The virus that doesn't exist, or the virus that's only as bad as a flu. Trump, several media outlets are reporting that the campaign is asking rally goers to waive COVID-19 liability. According to Bloomberg, I love reading from Bloomberg for obvious reasons. President Donald Trump's campaign is asking people attending his campaign rally in Oklahoma next week to waive liability if they contract COVID-19, even as he hurdles forward to reopening the country. So let's get this straight. It's perfectly safe to reopen the economy and for you to go back to work or for you to go back shopping and go to concerts and go to the bars. But it's not safe enough for you to come to a Donald Trump rally without signing a waiver of liability, meaning basically that people are going to die. I mean, the numbers just stated. People who show up to Donald Trump's rally, there's going to be a percentage, without question. It is a statistical certainty that there will be a percentage of people who will contract COVID-19. If enough of them contract COVID-19, then it's going to be a certainty that somebody is going to die. And what Donald Trump's campaign is trying to do is avoid being sued. I am curious as to how conservatives are going to rationalize this or justify this. What type of special pleading are they going to have to engage in to justify the fact that they feel it is unpatriotic to wear a mask, but Donald Trump is asking them to sign a waiver of liability to come to his rallies, right? You have some restaurants across this country that if you come in there with a mask, they're going to send you out because they think you're fear mongering and they think that you're buying into the Chinese conspiracy hoax, right? They think that you're being unpatriotic, right? But if you go to a Donald Trump rally, you got to sign a waiver. I am really curious to see how they're going to justify this one. I know it's going to be quite entertaining. But there's something going on around this country that there's a lot going on around this country that blows me away, right? And it is obviously COVID-19 has never left. We've had a minor revolution. I call it a minor revolution because the people did rise up. The people rose up in a significant fashion. You have to call what happened a revolution. The people rose up despite COVID-19. In fact, some people argue that people rose up because of COVID-19, because the government refused to take care of the people like they took care of corporations and basically slapped it in our face and showed us just how inequitable this country really is, how much they really don't give a damn about the people, that they will write trillions of dollars every single day. They drop $1 trillion into this economy to try to keep it afloat, to try to keep the market solvent, to try to keep the wealthy continuing to get their quarterly profit margins, and yet they gave the people $1,200. That was one of the reasons the people took to the streets, right? And so in the backdrop of COVID-19, the backdrop of this depression, the backdrop of this revolution that just happened, we're dealing with a group in the ruling elite of this country who are so determined to protect the old world that they're willing to let everything crumble around us when the world is screaming, when all of everything that's on the table, everything that is happening, everything that's going on around us, depression era levels of unemployment, 115,000 people now dead from COVID-19, uprisings all across this country. The ruling elite are so committed to a broken system that they are willing to let this entire system implode before they change a single thing. I want you to get that. Every single thing that has happened so far in 2020 screams for change, for structural change. Everything that is going on in 2020 screams for us to do things differently than how we've been doing it. And each thing that has happened has presented us with an opportunity that if the ruling elite were not myopic and obsessed and driven nothing but by their greed and their desire to meet their next quarterly profit margins, if they actually had the foresight, they would see that what this world is screaming right now is a fundamental change that would help sustain humanity in the long run, as well as generate even more wealth than they could ever imagine. What am I saying? I'm saying that we had an opportunity with COVID-19 to do something fundamentally different that would have still generated wealth for the wealthy, for the rich, for the ruling elite, for the oligarchs. Putting money into the hands of the people has always been a way to generate wealth for the richest people, because the people have to spend. The people will consume. The people do not hoard wealth because they don't have enough wealth to hoard. They have to spend it. They have to spend it on rent. They have to spend it on food. They have to spend it on whatever widgets they're going to consume. So the government has never been able to put money into the hands of the people and not see that money circulate through the entire economy. And what COVID-19 demanded that we do was for us to send people home and put money into their hands and let them consume from home so that we can minimize the number of deaths. But what did the ruling elite say? They said, hell no, we do not want to give the people any money. We want the government to give the money directly to us. And so what happens? You have 115,000 people dead in 3 months. And that number is going to increase even more, not only because of the natural rate of growth of COVID-19, but also because the government is saying to reopen things, and also because of the revolution. We just got to, it is what it is. It's an unfortunate reality, but some of the people who went out to protest, they went out and protested knowing full well that there was a possibility that they would contract COVID-19. So there was an opportunity. This system, this whole world, this structure that we have, this society itself is screaming for us to do something fundamentally different. But the ruling elite, of which both parties are members in good standing, the oligarchs, for which many, you have Democratic oligarchs. This system is screaming for a revolutionary change, a change that will create even more wealth, right? I can't stress this enough. I talk about this all the time in the Patrons episode. But the fact of the matter is that we have not seen wealth yet. We have no idea the amount of wealth that our society could create if, instead of extracting and draining every individual on the face of this globe, exploiting our labor, exploiting our consumption, exploiting our wealth, leaving us with nothing, broken and destitute and dead. Instead of doing that, if we actually gave people resources to flourish, you would generate far more wealth in this society than we could ever imagine. Imagine if every single individual across the face of this globe actually had the resources that they need to tap into their ingenuity, right? I would just say creative, but a lot of people are like, oh, we want to be creative. But you know what the corporate word for creativity is ingenuity. Right? So let's speak their language, for God's sake. Imagine if every person in this world had enough resources to tap into their own ingenuity. The amount of technological advances that we would have would be unimaginable. The amount of new resources that are created would be unimaginable, right? It would just be an abundance of wealth and creativity and ingenuity and technology. It would be an entirely new scientific revolution if the people were not so constrained by living paycheck to paycheck. But the rulers of this world have been satisfied with the amount of wealth that they can generate by exploiting us, by keeping us running around like chickens without a head, keeping us running around desperate to just get that next check so that we can just survive. Our system, whether you want to believe what I'm saying or not, the world around us is screaming for us to do something fundamentally different. COVID-19 said, you have to change your economic ways, America. And what did the ruling elite say? No, we're just going to write bigger checks to the richest, and we're going to leave the poor people to fend for themselves. The economic depression that we are in right now said, America, you got to change your ways. And what did they say? No, that's fine. We're just going to let 41 million people be unemployed, and we'll figure out how to keep the quarterly profit margins of the rich going. So long as the rich keep hitting their quarterly profit margins, we don't care that soon 1 in 5 Americans will be unemployed. The revolution The violence of police, the police state has triggered a revolution in this country that screams at America that America, you have to fundamentally change. And what did America say? No, we don't. We're just going to give Joe Biden, what are we going to do? We're going to give $300 million more to the police. We're not going to even question about defunding the police. This country in 6 months, in the first 6 months of 2020, this country has been hit with world-changing events that have screamed, we have to change. If we want to survive as a nation, as a species, we have to change. One after the other. Every month we're hit with something that screams we must change. And the ruling elite in this country says we're fine like it is. We don't care if we burn it down. We don't care if we implode. We don't care how many people die. We refuse to change because we're satisfied with the profit margins we're currently getting. And so the question is what's next? What's coming around the corner? What will finally be the Achilles heel? Because the ruling elite is so arrogant. The ruling elite of this country, of this world, is so arrogant that it believes that it could look in the face of a global pandemic and scoff and not change a thing. That it could look in the face of a new depression and scoff and not change a thing. That it could look in the face of a revolution and scoff and not change a thing. So my question is what is it going to take? It's like their hearts have been hardened. It's like the story out of the Bible. They're like Pharaoh. They are looking at all of the pestilence around us. They're looking at all the plagues around us, and they're still saying that they will not liberate the people. So what's it going to take? My prayer and my hope is that it's something that crushes the ruling elite and preserves all of the people. Because it's not our hearts that are hardened. It is the ruling elite that is looking at disaster around us, disaster and calamity around us, and ignoring the signs that are saying we must fundamentally change how we treat our fellow man. I'm sorry. It's just really heavy on my mind this morning, right? Because I get that every single individual probably has something that they continue to do, even though they know that thing is destructive. Yeah. Everybody, like some of us like to smoke, right? And we smoke, like, do what you do, right? But we know full well that smoking is going to shorten our lives, right? For me, it's like food. Like I go back and forth from being on a diet to getting off a diet. I'm back and forth. I lose pounds. I gain pounds. I lose 20 pounds. I gain 25. Then I lose 40. And I know that's just self-destructive to my body. And eventually it'll catch up with me. Everybody engages in some type of behavior that they know is wrong, but they continue to do it. The problem is that that's our individual choice. And not the problem, right? The difference is that is our individual choice and we're doing it to ourselves. Once we start doing it to somebody else, that is a problem. When you have people who engage in destructive behaviors that are harming other people, then it becomes a serious problem that we have to address, right? There are people who are gaslighters, who are abusive. They continuously engage in behaviors that are going to harm the well-being of another human being. We're dealing with sociopaths of the magnitude that continue in behaviors and patterns and practices that are going to destroy humanity. That's the difference. I get this. I get the psychopathy, right? I get the thinking. I understand when you're addicted to something, you're addicted to food. It's kind of hard to not be addicted to food. You just keep doing it over and over and over again. I totally get it. But when you are addicted to something that's going to destroy all of humanity, something that we're literally looking week after week. We look at another calamity. All of our chickens decided to come home to roost at one time. There was a cross between saying damn time and time, like damn time. Well, whatever, you get it. All of our chickens are coming home to roost at the same time. It's like everything, every calamity that we avoided in the past, everybody thought Y2K was going to be it. Everybody thought 2012, the year the Mayans said it was going to be over. Everything came home to roost at one time. And the powerful of this world are like, it's nothing. We're just going to keep on going. Not to mention, in the backdrop of all of this is global climate change. We're facing climate disaster, and yet we are not able to change our behavior patterns. We can as individuals, but the rulers of this world are so committed to this current power structure that they refuse to change anything. We are led by sociopaths. We're led by people who have no regard for the amount of lives that they destroy in the name of their profit margins. This is a testament to the power of greed. Greed is such a powerful drug. It is such a powerful vice that people have zero regard for how many people they have to step on. How many people they actually have to kill to get that quarterly profit margin. They have no regard for the well-being of anyone around them. They have no regard for the well-being of our planet. They have no regard for anything other than their greed. And so we're locked in this vicious cycle of us absorbing new traumas every week in this country in particular. And as a result, because this country is so powerful, so economically powerful, so politically powerful, whatever happens in this country generally happens across the globe. We absorb new traumas every single week because the ruling elite refuse to take a step back and say, how do we change so that we can survive in the long run? Like, how do we survive in the long run? They have no regard for that whatsoever. They don't care about their children, not for real. They definitely don't care about their grandchildren. They're not doing anything to secure the future of their grandchildren except amassing wealth, which in the manner in which they amass that wealth is destructive. They certainly aren't thinking about their great-grandchildren, and they probably assume that their great-great-grandchildren won't even be alive. That's the sociopathy that we're dealing with the ruling elite, and they're looking at, and I mean, each and every one of us, we look at the news and we're watching online, we're watching social media, we looked at the revolutions, we looked at the unrest, the civil unrest, we look at the police violence, we look at the depression level, and we're like, holy shit, surely this is enough for this world to change. And at the risk of sounding naive, I mean, surely some of you looked at each of these things that has happened in 2020 alone. 2020 alone, and said, okay, we're going to get our stuff together now. And lo and behold, we went right back to politics as usual, economics as usual. And then the next thing, 41 million people unemployed. And you're like, well, okay, we're going to definitely do something right this time. No, man, we are on a collision path with destiny. We are on a collision path with destruction because the people who are driving this car, this boat, the people who are the captains of the ship, have no regard for the huge iceberg that people have been warning them about. And they just keep plowing headlong into disaster. And that's why we've got to continue this revolution, because the rulers of this world do not deserve to be the rulers of this world, because they have no regard for the well-being of the vast majority of people in this world. And one of the number one ways that these things are accomplished, man, the way the ruling elite continue to get away with what they get away with is through their propaganda. And there's one thing that I remember the most from 1984. People keep referencing it, so hell, let me just go ahead and reference it myself. Orson Welles, 1984. It was the frustration of the protagonist. He was frustrated because he knew that if he ever got into an encounter with someone from the party, the ruling party, that they would be able to confuse him, to spin a narrative, to use propaganda and half truths to completely obliterate him in an argument, right? And I mean, I would just read the paragraph in particular that I'm thinking about, but you get the picture. His biggest concern was the amount of propaganda and the ease with which people from the party would be able to confuse the conversation. I think that's the most important takeaway out of that book that's applicable today. Because the number one thing that's being employed, the number one propaganda tool that's being employed by those in power today, both political parties are representative of the ruling elite. There's no question about it. I know that's hard for some people to accept. That's a hard pill to swallow. But Nancy Pelosi and Jim Clyburn are as much protectors of the ruling elite as Donald Trump is. They just have different methods of protecting the ruling class. And the number one tool that they use is to confuse you in your mind to make you second guess what you're fighting for. They tried it. They absolutely tried it when the protest started. That's why we pushed as hard as we could to make sure everyone understood that your protest is valid, because they tried to invalidate the protest in your mind first. If they can kill the protest in your mind, then they can kill the protest in the streets. And if they can just confuse the protest in your mind, they can kill the protest in the streets. The same thing is being deployed now against the Defund the Police movement. Now, to be sure, defunding the police is not an extreme notion. It's not. Abolishing the police, I don't even know if I consider that extreme, but that would be the opposite end of the spectrum, right? If you have two opposing sides, you have abolish the police and you have give the police even more money and let them keep doing what they want to do. Those seem to be fairly extreme opposite ends of the narrative, of the conversation. Defund the police is actually quite the compromise. But what is being deployed right now? What tool is being employed right now? It is to have everyone scrambling to figure out, well, what do you mean by defund the police? Everyone is scrambling. And now what's being seeded into the conversation in the most masterful propagandistic way is the idea in everyone's mind that the police are the reason your neighborhood is safe. That if you defund the police, all of a sudden your neighborhood is not going to be safe anymore. And that's absolutely not true. Your neighborhood is clearly not safe because the police are there, because the safest neighborhoods don't have police. They have resources. How's this tied to everything I'm talking about? Well, it ties directly to the propaganda tools used by the ruling elite, the ruling party in this country that is trying to make sure that it can confuse you enough to not have a singular purpose and a singular goal. That's the goal. That's the technique. If they can confuse your purpose in your mind, then they can neutralize your movement. That's what they've been doing. That's what they continuously do. Another technique that they do. I need you to be aware of the games that they play, right? If they have you scared, I mean, really think about it. They have you thinking that there are barbarians outside of the gate that the police have been diligently preventing from coming to your neighborhood all this time, when in reality, the police are the barbarians outside of the gate. And if you let them in your community, you see your community destroyed. Period. Those are the facts. Those are the actual tangible realities. Your neighborhood is not, think about the neighborhoods that cops go home to. I used to live next to a cop when we lived in Atlanta. And the neighborhood, he never had to do anything but wash his car in our neighborhood. He didn't have to stand watch. This isn't Walking Dead, where the police are standing on the wall like Rick Grimes looking for the walkers to come in. But that's what they have you thinking, and that's intentional. That is intentional. They're not confused. This is the most important part. If you don't take anything else from this little segment, they are not confused about what defunding the police means. They are not confused about the reality that the police do not protect your communities. They know sure as hell that they don't have police patrolling their communities, that their cities, that their rich enclaves are perfectly peaceful, not because the police are there, but because they have enough resources to never need the police, because everyone has their basic needs taken care of. They know that to be true. But they also know that they need the police state to do something else in this country. They need the police state to keep the masses of people from ever tearing down their power structure, from ever standing up against their power structure. The ruling elite need the police to patrol you, not their communities. They need the police to keep them safe from you, not to keep you safe from criminals. And so what do? They get everyone scrambling. Everyone's trying. What does it mean to defund the police? No, let's not call it defund the police. Let's call it reform the police. No, let's not call it reform the police. Let's call it fix the police. Let's not anything and everything to get you off of a singular purpose. Because they know that if they can confuse the protest in your mind, they can kill your protest in the streets. And so here we are. Here we are getting ready to return back to politics as usual, to business as usual. The uprisings have subsided. They haven't stopped, but they certainly have started to wane. That's because the ruling elite finally realized, holy shit, we can't beat them into submission, because if we beat them into submission, then they're going to keep growing in their protest. I'm sorry, folks. Yeah, I always bring you some kind of biblical reference only because, like, when it hits hard. Moses said that the more they oppressed the children of Israel, the more they grew. And it's like these people who play around with religion to control the masses never really paid attention to it, because it warned you a long time ago. The more you oppress a movement, the more it will grow. The more cops beat us in the streets, the more this thing grew. And so they finally realized, holy shit, let's stop beating them, because that's not going to work. And so now they have done exactly what they needed to do to get things back to normal. They have shifted the narrative from the people to the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is now controlling the narrative about how do we address police reform. And we're not even considering defunding the police. They've rolled out all the black tokens that they need to roll out to make all those good-meaning black folks who voted for who have Barack Obama over their mantle to say, oh, well, we need the police. The police are who keep us safe. No, this entire thing has been so quickly co-opted, and now it's moved into a nice, quiet, comfortable place where the Democrats can keep everyone nice and docile and never become a real threat to changing how we do things. But it's the fact that we never change how we do things in this country that literally has us on the path to destruction. If we do not change our ways, America, we're not going to make it. But we will have this Patron Party coming up.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
The one and only reason I am able to speak truth to power without any regard for the powerful's feelings is because of these people right here. Very special welcome to all of our newest patrons. Dimitri Resnick, thank you for becoming a patron. Pete Erickson, thank you for becoming a patron. Chris Lovings, Shane Hoffman, John Ross Chisholm, thank you for becoming a patron. Everybody just bounce. Rosalind Wilford, thank you for becoming a patron. Gustavo Goretin, thank you for becoming a patron. The Truth, thank you for becoming a patron. And I will say it on air, I don't care. Turd Sandwich, that's what you wanted. Thank you for becoming a patron. Monica Nord, thank you for becoming a patron. Trez EQ, thank you for becoming a patron. Michael Iverson, thank you for becoming a patron. Miranda Games, thank you for becoming a patron. Anthony Crawley, thank you for becoming a patron. Jeremy Somerville, thank you for becoming a patron. You too can become a part of this prestigious, prodigious patron family that affords me the opportunity to speak truth to power, whether the powerful like it or not, by going to patreon.com/The BPD Show. Twice the show, all the interviews, none of the ads.
Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at www.thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. I don't know. So it's the end of the week, and I guess everything has culminated to this point for me. Like as I look at the world around us and I digest everything that's going on around us, the number one message that I've gotten, the thing that keeps playing in my head is like, what is it going to take for us to change America? What is it going to take for us to change America? And what is it going to take for us to change America? No, seriously. Like, do we have to have a level of destruction in this country in which we barely survive before we say, okay, now we will relent and do something different? Do we have to hit the proverbial rock bottom? What does rock bottom look like for a country of 320 some odd million people with more nuclear weapons than anyone else on the face of the planet? What does rock bottom really look like? And do we have to get there before we actually take a step back and say, okay, we can do something different? Because it's not as though doing something different. Here's the other thing that they have you confused about. Changing the way that we do economics in this country, changing our fiscal policy, and instead of writing all the wealth of our coffers, the coffers, all the wealth that's generated by this country, we have decided as a matter of principle to give it to the rich and to corporations with zero regard for the millions of people functioning every single day trying to survive. We have no regard for them whatsoever. We have made it a matter of policy, not principle. That's what I was looking for. It is a matter of policy that we leave people scrambling, desperate, living perpetually on the edge of disaster, always looking over into the abyss of nothingness, knowing full well that if they sneeze too hard, they will fall over into an economic despair that they will never recover from. And then there's some people who are already in that abyss. As a matter of policy, America rewards the greed of this country, and it has zero regard for the people who are struggling. And the people who are struggling are generally the people who do the most for this country. That has always been the case. But what is it going to take for us to change that paradigm? What is it going to take for us to actually say we no longer are going to use the brute force of the police state to keep the people in subjection so that we can extort and extract and exploit as much wealth as we can possibly get out of the masses and send it to a handful of people? We're talking about less than 1,000 people who are the rulers of this country, who have enough wealth to fix every single problem that ever could have come up in this country. But yet we do nothing but leave the people desperate. And it's not as though it's going well. Yeah, you're hitting your quarterly profit margins, but your engine of economic prosperity is sputtering. Like we're struggling here. The labor force is struggling. 41 million people unemployed and even more severely underemployed in this gig economy. The people who built this nation, you know, we're telling you we're not taking this anymore. And yet you still send your police state out here to crush us as a matter of routine and as a matter of policy. What is it going to take? I have a whole lot more different things to talk about. I'm not going to talk about this through the patrons episode, so feel free to go ahead and become a patron because I'll probably cover some news or something. I don't know. But right now, what's on my mind for the public is that we really need to find out, where do we draw the line as a civilization? How long are we going to let the ruling elite drive us into the ditch for their quarterly profit margins? How long? Because I don't know how much longer we actually have. That's the problem. We do not have much longer to keep playing these games with the richest people on the face of this planet at the expense of the environment, at the expense of the people, and at the expense of, well, that's my time. If nothing else, the sun is shining outside and we've got the truth on our side. So be encouraged. Thank you for being a beautiful audience. Patrons, stay tuned. I'll see everyone else next time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.